What is up, Mets fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Mets'd podcast. We have actually a shocking amount to talk about in the middle of January, end of January here. And it's not just about James and his pink curtains behind him in his hotel room in Thailand. This is a very international episode of the Mets'd podcast. We've got Pete Alonso news. We've got Adbert Alzolay signing. We've got new Mets jerseys. We have Steve Cohen making comments on Pete Alonso. Amazing day. There was a lot of really cool stuff that went on there that we want to talk about as well. So we'll give you guys a little recap here on this episode. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. Remember, if you're over on YouTube, click that subscribe button. 50% of you that watch the videos aren't subscribed. Click subscribe so that every time an episode comes out, goes right onto your home feed, makes it nice and easy for you, and it's free. Follow us on all our social media at Mets'd on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And make sure if you are listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, drop us a rating, drop us a review, and download and subscribe. First off, James, how you feeling out there in Thailand?
Feeling wonderful. It's been a very nice trip so far. Beautiful beaches, really good food. And you guys know I have to get out of the city for a little while every single year.
Of course.
This is the best time of the baseball calendar to do it. So I'm taking some time right now before spring training starts and having a lovely time. I've taken a lot of culture, eating some crazy food I've never seen or heard of before. Tried jellyfish at a local night market.
Whoa,
which was
how was that?
horrible. But there was so much weird stuff, and that one looked the cleanest, so I'm like, I'm gonna have that. And it sucked. Horrible. Worst kissy veggie food I've ever had. Saw some local Mai Tai fights at an event on Friday night where with a wide swath of weight classes through the fights, seven fights, a lot of undercard, and the big fight, the main event, and a Thai dude knocked out an English dude, which was really cool to see. $2 beers, $3 mixed drinks, $10 ticket to get in there, $16 ticket to get in there. It's been a really, really nice couple of days.
Yeah, sounds like a fantastic little getaway. Smart time. Of course, this is probably, I would think of all the episodes that you're going to be away for, this is going to be the most action-packed one in terms of things to actually talk about one.
There's no way, because there's so many things looming in the baseball world still, just because of the timing of the free agent market. Like, you can't say that until Pete Alonso has a team. The hope is that just in the next 2.5 weeks, while I'm still here, 3 weeks, Pete Alonso doesn't sign, and it actually comes to fruition, like the last week of February, first week of March, like we always predicted.
Well, to be fair, based on the information and news and even stuff that we heard from Steve Cohen, it seems like the door is still very much open for Pete Alonso, but also at the same time, I don't think there's any rush. It seems like by anybody, because now we got rumors that the Blue Jays are making pushes. We've got rumors that Pete Alonso met with the Angels and that the Angels were making an offer for Pete Alonso or were attempting to make an offer for Pete Alonso. Everyone's trying to get their clicks, as we know. There's been a million people. He's the new Juan Soto in that who's a random person on Twitter that can lie about what's going on. As always, listen to the trusted guys, your Jeff Passage, your Ken Rosenthal's, shout out Will Sam and Tim Healy, all those guys. Everyone that is trusted and a legitimate source, trust them. And I think that's basically what I want to get on my soapbox for about news.
Yeah, I had the tweet of that whole saga, which happened like 3 days ago now, last Thursday or whatever, was from @LeBron breaking. Scott Boras is telling people that Pete Alonso will sign with the Jays if the Mets don't up their offer by the time he counts to 3. He is currently at 2.5, and industry sources speculate he could be at 2 3/4 next. That just seems like where we're at. It seems like between the Mets and Pete Alonso, this has been true the whole time. We've been standing pat on this, that there's no better fit for each other.
I think Ken Rosenthal even said something along the lines of, as much as like the Mets seem a little bit less interested in Pete Alonso than Pete is on the Mets, that ultimately he still feels like Pete Alonso and the Mets makes the most sense for both parties.
Totally. And again, it's a team like the Blue Jays linked to him. The Blue Jays who just signed Anthony Santander, who's a glorified DH. They have Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who has to play first base. Like, how many guys like that can you have on one team? And also, if you're a guy like Pete Alonso, we've said this the whole time, it's always been true, been very consistent about this with Pete. You're staring at this Blue Jays roster. You're staring at the AL East, knowing you're absolutely the 4th or 5th worst team at best. That organization has no future. You don't know what's going to happen next year with most of that core, most of that pitching staff. You're going to sign a multi-year deal there instead of just, I mean, at some point this becomes pride, this becomes ego, but just signing a deal for the Mets at around your market rate, slightly above it, even if it's just for 1 year to play with Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor, and you know it was deep in his heart and his mind, killing Pete not to be part of all the Amazins Day stuff. Like, legitimately, I bet that hurt him to his core, and I feel like that's the kind of shit that he would love to be at. He relishes in that, like being at the fans, being with the city, like being that guy, having the bravado, and like you're not getting that with another team. You're going to toil around in Los Angeles, Anaheim the rest of your career, like away from your family, just a horrible organization with horrible teammates. Like, it's just not horrible teammates like people, but just talent-wise. Like, you just want to suck for the next couple of years. You just got a real taste of success. You played so well on the biggest stage. It doesn't make sense for him to go anywhere else, truthfully.
I think there's also something to say about Pete Alonso, his free agency, the quality of player that he is viewed as moving forward, that the teams interested right now are the team that had him in the New York Mets. And we know why. He is a perfect fit for this team with that 40 home run power, with everything that he has the opportunity to change what this lineup can look like. But for the Blue Jays, bad organization, like you said, terrible future. And the Angels are genuinely one of the worst organizations all of Major League Baseball. You're not hearing about like the Rays being interested. You're not hearing about like any of these organizations that are very forward thinking or will, like whenever someone gets picked up by them, you're like, ooh, they got a little juice left or something. Like the market is very, very bleak. And the other teams that are competing for you besides the Mets are ones that you probably don't really want to be a part of right now.
And it just sucks, but it's the truth of Pete Alonso that the last 2 years, like we've seen him get worse at the thing that he used to be best at, which is hitting the ball really, really hard with tremendous consistency. He's just not doing that as often. And we've always speculated that was just a mental thing where Pete wanted to become like a little more batting average guy. I thought that'd make him have a more full little spectrum. I'm losing my words here. God, Thailand brain. He's just making a better profile as a free agent, a more complete baseball player. But then he's just made him hit the ball less hard. And then you look at the fact that now he never had any defensive value ever. And now he wants to be paid like a top market guy. Like this doesn't seem that dissimilar to me to a guy like Rhys Hoskins when he was getting near free agency. Like when you're not that athletic to begin with and you turn 30 years old and you start to get
Pete's
a little
much
bit
better,
worse.
of course.
But no, of course he's much better. But I'm saying like some of those peak Rhys Hoskins years, you were like, this guy's fucking awesome.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? I bet there was a moment where some Philly people, it wasn't the same magnitude as Pete Alonso. But again, the same thing with Pete Alonso, the same thing that I always talk to you about with Glaber and with Bregman. It's different because he had another peak season where he was awesome. But the best season Pete had should be taken with a little bit more of a grain of salt. And I think Mets fans do because of the Rabbit baseball in 2019. And he broke the rookie home run record. It was an amazing moment. It's been really cool to watch him grow. But he's someone who is probably getting worse before he gets better. And we always go back to the thing about Pete squeezing the bat too tight, Pete being nervous.
Yep.
You can't prove that. You can't go into the meetings and be like, he was a little nervous this year, give him more money. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing we can point to statistically. We're not using RBIs to dictate free agent value. This isn't the fucking Stone Age.
No.
It's like, it's just, he doesn't really have much of a leg to stand on when it comes to making more money than, like, the market thinks he's worth. And that's still where we're at. It's kind of cool. The Mets are standing their ground on it.
Yeah, and we heard a little bit of insight now from the Mets side of things at Amazin Day, one of the many sound clips and things that were going on. Steve Cohen on stage with David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza after hearing, we want Pete chants, we want Alonso chants. David Stearns apparently getting booed for about not just giving Pete all the money that he wants. Steve Cohen bumped in, and here's what he said. He goes, we've made a significant offer to Pete, and what David has said is correct. He's entitled to go out and explore the market, and that's what he's doing. Personally, this has been an exhausting conversation and negotiation. Soto was tough. This is worse. A lot of it is we made a significant offer. I don't like the structures of the offer that are being presented back to us, and I think it's highly asymmetric against us. I feel strongly about it. That's like he I guess followed it up too by saying, I will never say no. There's always a possibility. The reality is we're moving forward. We continue bringing in players. And as we continue bringing in players, the reality is it becomes harder to fit Pete into a very expensive group of players that we already have. That's where we are. I think that's a really shocking thing he said that Amazing Day. Couldn't believe that Cohen said this. No. Not because it's bad, not because it's good, more so because it is a very, very public statement from the guy who signs the checks. And truthfully, it felt like a little bit of a message not only to Pete and Boris, because I think that was a great move by Cohen, making this public about we've made good offers, figure it out, take it or leave it. But also, a lot of people have been on Stearns for being cheap, that David Stearns is the reason why the Mets won't sign Pete Alonso. This is now the head honcho saying, we want him at this price. If he does not accept it, we are not going to overpay him. We're not going to be held at gunpoint to what Pete Alonso wants when we don't believe he deserves that. I thought it was bizarre that he brought it up, but also I can see the wheels turning, and it feels like kind of a baller move a little bit.
It feels to me like he didn't want to bring this up, and he was hoping and praying in his deepest heart that no one was talking. This Pete Alonso's name was not brought up at his own sanctioned FanFest event where he was speaking publicly. But I did feel like he was very articulate, had something very planned to say if it did happen. And just to give you guys a little briefing on what he meant by the contract structure. A lot of these most recent Bourne clients that have signed later in the offseason, Bellinger, Chapman, Snell, they got the same kind of thing where the buyout is part of like foregoing salary if you opt out. Or not the buyout. Where like Bellinger, instead of getting his $30 million last year, he only got $27.5. The $2 million was locked out behind him performing well enough to opt out. And then Bellinger didn't opt out and he stayed in. The Cubs got to save that $2.5 million, which I don't know exactly why. That seems to me just like Boris is more desperate. Shout out my guy Rob, who was talking me through his contract stuff last night. I haven't been like super keyed into the news the last few days, but it's just it seems to me like he keeps kind of having these like structured buyouts for these guys who are ready to opt out instead of just doing the money up front, having regular buyouts. And for some reason, that has become the sticking point with the Mets, which is that sticking point, and that's your sticking point. Like, hold to your guns. I like that Steve used the word asymmetric. I think that feels to me like a finance thing. I'm not exactly sure, but it just seems like that's more money talk than anything else. And it's really cool that Steve Cohen put out this super unified front with David Stearns, because this thing has happened this offseason, which we've talked about a lot in the show, that Mets fans are separating those two for some reason. And they're saying that Steve Cohen signed Juan Soto and David Stearns has done nothing this offseason except build a bullpen and build a pitching staff on the fly for the second year in a row. But it's really cool that those guys are standing together, and Dave and Steve Cohen, which of course he always did, but as a public show that now has hundreds of thousands of impressions on social media and in front of a group of Mets fans that paid to be at an event where they could just see guys talk and get stuff, like just be a part of the Citi Field for a day. Those are some of the most ravenous Mets fans on earth. And of course they were, because they're chanting Pete Alonso's name. He's like, we're together in this. We're lockstep. I don't want Pete Alonso more than what he's doing right now either. I'm not going to give this guy a blank check. I'm going to give him what he's worth. And if he doesn't think that's what he's worth, he's welcome to explore the market. And that's very contritely what he said. It's very much what's happening right now. And not that it literally means the door is still ajar. It's very open. It's not even close to being closed. It's very open. I think that's where we are. I think it's where we have been.
Yeah, and again, we've said on this podcast many times, until Pete Alonso signs for a team not named the New York Mets, I still fully believe he will be back as a New York Met.
Yeah, and I also just brain blasted on these opt-out things. He's negotiating these opt-outs for the teams to lower the cost. So he's kind of trying to instigate the opt-out. You know what I mean? Like, if he doesn't opt out, you have to pay more money. So I think that's kind of what it is. The Mets are probably like, we have to pay a couple extra $1 million. Like, that's kind of stupid. But I don't know. It still just feels like we're going to swirl in the toilet bowl until either one of these stupid teams ponies up a ton of money, or Pete just decides to bend a knee and come back. But I don't know. This might be a good test for both Boris and Pete's ego. Like, if they don't want to come back, if they don't think that they're getting what they're worth, but they are getting what they're worth. Like, does he take an extra $4 million to play for a worse team in a worse situation? Is that worth it at the end of the day? Is that where you want to be? Is that what you want your career to be based on?
I'll tell you this. I like Pete, and I'm always with you with the whole, like, get your bag, get your money. This will leave a bad taste in the Pete Alonso mouth. Or not in the Pete Alonso mouth, in the mouth of, like, the Pete Alonso legacy, where if you were to take what is over the lifespan of a contract, a couple more $1 million to go play for a significantly worse team. I also think it just hurts his legacy theoretically in, like, the grand scheme of baseball too. Like, let's just get into a crazy world real quick here where Pete Alonso stays with the Mets, hits behind Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor, and all those guys in that lineup, and continues to hit 35 to 40 home runs a year. You're going to look at a guy who's going to have around 400 to 500 home runs in his career. He's going to have a shit ton of RBIs. He's going to have all these all-star appearances. That's going to be a guy who has a Hall of Fame case at some point. It's going to be hard to keep somebody out with close to 500 home runs, and if they win a World Series. But if he plays for, like, the Angels and has those kind of similar-ish numbers with any sort of decline, or if he plays for the Blue Jays with those numbers, any sort of decline without any sort of winning necessarily, I think it does hurt how you look at Pete Alonso moving forward. It feels very short-sighted right now. I'll just say it like that. It feels like we're thinking too short-sighted.
I think we're definitely jumping ahead with the Pete Alonso Hall of Fame stuff.
Why though? I think that's important. I think that is contextually important. Like, he's hit 226 home runs in his career in 5.5 seasons, including the COVID year. I think there's a world where he plays another 8 years. Let's conservatively say he doubles it. He's going to be at 450. He's going to be at 450 homers with over 1,000 RBIs in his career. Could be on a team that maybe makes some noise, winning World Series or two. That is a Hall of Fame caliber player, no doubt.
Yeah, it's funny. The Hall of Fame stuff happened the last couple of days too. That, like, is the epitome of the old school Hall of Famer. Shout out CeCe Sabathia for some reason being a first ballot Hall of Famer. Billy Wagner and who else got it? Ichiro. Of course,
you don't think CeCe should have been first ballot? I thought he should have been.
I thought he was a little bit on the line. I think there's some pitchers who weren't. I think there's some pitchers who have as good cases as CeCe that haven't even sniffed.
His one thing
Johan
is
Santana.
Fair. He snuck in right before, like, because, like, Kershaw obviously was a better pitcher during the time.
Yeah.
Johan wasn't a better pitcher, but he was just able to, like, sneak in between those guys, be really, really good, and just last long. I to be fair,
CeCe was the guy who he was playing. I was like, I really hope they actually let him in because he's like a sick
I was
pitcher,
worried they weren't going to.
Yeah, and CeCe does have a great mix of volume, peak, playoffs, and fame. Like, that's what the Hall of Fame loves. Like, that's the secret concoction. That's the potion for it. So again, happy for all those guys in the Hall of Fame. But I think the still thing that's the biggest concern with Pete is that there's ample chance of, like, significant regression. Like, I don't know. Like, again, I still believe that it's been like nervousness and a carryover of the wrist injury from last year. But there's a real chance that he's never going to be the guy from 2022 again, like very legitimately. And if that's the case, again, you're not going to beat the full market rate to get him. I don't know what's going to happen. But again, it's cool that they talked about it so openly in front of the fans.
Yeah, I thought there was no shot that was going to be mentioned during Amazin' Day. I really thought it was going to be something that was completely glazed over.
I think it got mentioned when the fans started chanting Pete Alonso in front of the Q&A with Gary Cohen, David Stearns, and Steve Cohen.
I'll ask you this. Good on the fans? Good job by the fans forcing an answer out? Or is that a little crazy animal behavior?
It's a little bit of each, right? Because like it started with the boos for David Stearns.
Which is animal. Bad.
That's animal. That's bad. So it's kind of like the way I do this all the time with sports teams from cities where like I sometimes like the Eagles, but I hate the Phillies. You know what I mean? Because I'm not a Giants fan. I'm not from the NFC East. I like the players on the Eagles. I don't really ever conflate the Phillies and the Eagles together. Where like in this situation, the similar thing where the fans are booing David Stearns, they're chanting Pete Alonso, and they make Steve Cohen make a comment. Like that's fucking cool. It's unprecedented shit. Like I literally tweeted like this is unprecedented. I've never seen an owner talk about an active negotiation at the FanFest that he's putting on in front of a group of fans now on social media. But it's cool that. I don't know. It's cool that that happened. And again, it is good on the fans because I think some fans are demanding an answer. The Mets fans are some of the most passionate fans in sports, professional sports at least. Shout out Ohio State, national champs, can't keep us down. But it was a really cool thing, and I do think that Steve Cohen handled it super fucking well.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll hear more about Pete Alonso as the days and weeks and months go on here. Another move was made right before Amazin' Day, I believe. Adbert Alzolay signing a 2-year deal with the Mets. He's going to be out for the entire year with Tommy John, but he's a reclamation project, and it seems like the Mets might try to bring him back to a starter possibly as well, maybe when he comes back, which I think is super fascinating. Context, Adbert Alzolay had been the closer for the Cubs for like 1.5-ish seasons. He was a kind of hyped up prospect at one point in their organization as a starting pitcher. It didn't really work after 2021. He put up like a near 5 ERA. They kind of gave up on him being a starter, moved him to the bullpen, and he was great in 2023. 2.67 ERA, 22 saves in 64 innings, a whip right around 1. The stuff is good. He threw hard. And then last year he was just hurt by injury, so he only made 18 appearances. But this is the type of thing that me and you always applaud the front office for doing, is signing a guy on a very low risk, high reward contract right here. He's cheap. You buy out his basically rehab season to maybe get a guy for free that can make an impact the next year.
Yeah, conceptually, this is what the Dodgers did with Blake Treinen a few years ago. And again, I don't know if Alzolay is going to start. I think he does have the tools to start, but he also got his Tommy John surgery this past August. So, like you said, most likely he's not going to pitch in 2025. But he does a lot of things the Mets really like. He has a 4-seamer, a sinker, and a cutter, 3 different fastball variations. The cutter definitely leans more like a baby slider than like a fastball variation, but it's true. Then he has a tight slider and experimented with a sweeper. So it's like a true 5-pitch mix. Like he actually can, I think, get back to rotation. But it's just being a year ahead, like trying to get in on something. And it's the fact that a guy like Alzolay probably had a lot of similar offers like this. And of the teams that had similar offers to him, he chose the Mets because there's a lot of trust right now happening around Major League Baseball and Mets pitching development. So shout out the Mets for that. Shout out Alzolay. Shout out us for screaming about Alzolay on a couple different podcasts this offseason. Be like, get him in. And that year in 2023, like he was truthfully one of the better relievers in baseball once he got that closer's role in the second half. Like a whip right at 1, the 2.7 ERA, strikeouts, all those pitches. The slider's disgusting, and it was his primary pitch. Like he's for sure a piece, and it's really, really cool that the Mets are making moves like this as the offseason keeps going.
Definitely. And then they also made one more acquisition, which is going to be a new Mets jersey was announced. They got a new road alternate, a blue pullover with blue New York script across the front. Initial reactions, okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm not one to say that it's fantastic. I think if they did that New York script in gray, I think it would have looked really good because then it would have popped. I don't know what the Mets' obsession is with like not having any sort of popping on these jerseys on the front
Orange
anymore.
outlines.
We saw it with it's the orange outline, and they've just abandoned the white outline on the black jersey, which looked terrible last year. It was not nearly as good looking, and they didn't add any white to this one. A little bit confusing. Don't know how that gets through the approval process. I'm interested to see what it looks like on the field because we didn't see like what it's going to look like with like the pants or if there's a like different color hat that's coming with it as well. But I think it's one that I'll have because I'm a jersey guy, but I don't necessarily think it's one of the best jerseys right now in baseball by any means.
No, I think this jersey's close. It's really good. I'm interested to see what the collar actually looks like on players on the field. The collar seems weird to me, but I feel like it could be cool.
The Nationals had a jersey like this last year, and I think this is going to be the new thing that we see Nike dropping in is these pullover jerseys because the Nationals were the first to get one last year. It looks interesting. I mean, you got to remember, like, these dudes are ripped, so, like, it's a tight-fitting jersey at that point. It looks a little bit more normal than when it's just, like, hung on a coat hanger. But the gray pants, I feel like, is going to really throw me off with that jersey. I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah, like I know you don't really usually wear any white in the road, but the white outline and these with white pants kind of would slap. But it's just this
Yes.
jersey seems close. I don't think it's just much about the Mets like having a weird jersey. I like the New York on the road too, like the script New York. It's just about all jerseys across sports in the last about 20, 30 years have gotten so much worse over and
Taking a
over and
big
over and
step
over
back.
again. It's just such such a horrible job by Nike. Where if you look at like the drip on these players from the '90s, like every single sport, it's like this is sick, and that's why all of us in this era love the retro sports gear because it all looks so much cooler and there's so much more intricate in all these colors and stuff. So it's kind of, that part's kind of annoying, but I think a totally fine jersey. Very hard to have a strong opinion on this one.
Yes, and you know what? If the Mets win in it, I love the jersey. That's really all
Don't
that I
matter.
care about at the end of the day. Now let's talk about Amazin Day. Neither of us were there. You're in Thailand. I was in the city or whatever, had other plans, but it looked pretty cool. I will say that. I think overall, because I went to Mets Fan Fest in 2020,
2020, last
right
one.
before COVID. Shout out my boy Ernie. That's where I became friends with. I met Ernie, became friends with him. He was a Marlins fan at the time. We converted him to a Mets fan now. But without that FanFest day, I wouldn't have one of my best friends around. So shout out FanFest. It seems like they very much improved it. The players were just walking around. There was a lot of opportunities for people were throwing or taking swings in the batting cage, throwing pitches in the bullpen. You got to meet the players, take pictures with them, shake their hands, meet and greets. It looked like genuinely just a really good job from the outside in. That's all I could really tell.
Yeah, sales in the team store, like cool events that were happening at the same time. New players, old
Brett
players,
Beatty, New
young
Jersey.
players.
You could have bought the 22 for $50, I think, on a jersey.
No, I think
it was a great deal.
It was a $5 Brett Beatty jersey. I like that. It was cool. They put some spotlight on Beatty. A lot of people just hate all the Beatty rhetoric this offseason. I, for one, think it's a good thing that the Mets are really trying to push confidence on their former top prospect who has fewer than 500 career plate appearances that might have an opening day roster spot, if not an opening day starting spot, who probably still has legitimate potential as like a 3-win player in the next calendar year. I think all that's really possible for Brett Beatty, so I like that they're pushing him and doing this. Did you see what Francisco Alvarez was wearing?
It was insane. He wore like a pinstripe suit jacket.
Jacket over his jersey.
Yeah, it was insane. It looked like he was wearing like the old Frank Sinatra thing.
Yeah, it was cool seeing Mauricio there hanging out with those guys and Vientos a lot. Like we kind of forget because it's been so disjointed the last few years that those four spent so much time together coming up through the system, so many similar stops in the minor leagues. And Mauricio, yeah, we interviewed them all in the same day back in 2021. We were really getting this thing off the ground. But it's funny, too, because like Mauricio was the guy. Like Vientos, it was more like Mauricio Beatty Alvarez, but Vientos kind of a little older than the outskirts. And it's funny when you think about Mauricio and his skill set, how much he can tie this team together as like another legit infielder with crazy power, just like have a little bit of pizzazz, a little more Latin flair in here. Crazy to see Nimmo rocking his beard, like because he hasn't made many public appearances recently. Him having like a Grizzly Adams, like real Wyoming West Coast beard, I love to see this Nimmo like growing old, trying to be like a 30 homer corner outfielder with a 350 on base. I like that transition for him. Again, we talked about the Pete Cohen stuff. That was insane. Just watching the fans egg him on. Like, shame on any of you guys that booed David Stearns. Like, we're in such a new era with this organization. It's been so beautiful to watch the triumvirate of him, Mendoza, and Steve Cohen like operate and be trusted and well respected in the world of baseball. Now, the world of media as well. Like, it's just cool. It's very clear that he's sensationally good at his job, and I really, 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 really like that. He's even someone who I never thought he had much of a personality to be open in these public events in the way that he is. I think that's a very cool thing as well.
I find it so funny when I still on Twitter because I'll answer these people all the time when I like tweet about the Mets and they're like, they got Soto and then they've punted the rest of the offseason. Like they said that we're good. There's nothing else to do. I'm like, what are you talking about? What did they do that makes you think this? They're like, they didn't sign pitching. I'm like, Corbin Burns wasn't coming here, guys. I don't know what to tell you. You want to give Max Fried 9 years? That's what you would have had to have done. The amount of flack David Stearns catches, and granted, we're big glazers over here of David Stearns and his acumen as a president of baseball operations, but they made the playoffs last year. They made a run. He was an integral part of that.
Yeah, and again, we'll also push this back. Like we've kind of had this moment, I don't know, because I feel like there was some stuff about this FanFest that I thought was a little bit like, we talked about this a little bit, especially when the season ended last year, of the Mets crowning them. Yeah, the Mets crowning themselves for a season that was amazing, and I'll remember it forever. But you didn't win anything. You didn't win a division. You didn't go to the world. You didn't win your league. You didn't win a pennant. Like, you lost in the NLCS, which is great. But there's this element of like, I don't know, like this team is like, how am I going to say it?
I'll say it.
Say it.
It goes back to, and I'm going to bring up my favorite thing that everyone loved to hate me about. It goes back to like the idea of the Grimace seat being retired. It goes back to the idea of like the glorified OMG stuff. It's not that we're anti it. It's not that I
awesome.
hate the fact that, the stuff was amazing. It was awesome. The players loved it. It helped them win. Without a doubt, no doubt. It helped this team loosen up at least, and that helped them win. But seeing glorification is the best way to do it over what was a season where you did not win anything is still an awkward place for me as a sports fan. So as a sports fan whose teams have never won anything, it's a weird thing where it's like, I get it. It was a great season. I'm all for the positivity. I'm about it. It's all good. Like, this really isn't much of a complaint, just more of something that I wish was done a little differently, where it's like, I want to hear more about how, like, we're hungry. We want this, rather than, like, how awesome was last year.
Yeah, again, like, I do think they feel that way. I think there was still a lot of talk about that. And again, like, the
FanFest, and that's more on the organization than the players. I think the players are very focused on 2025. I don't think they give a shit what happened last year anymore.
Oh, no, totally. And again, it's like we have had these conversations too. We're not that we crowned this team. Like, we didn't crown this core necessarily. Like, we didn't crown the individual players in this team, but we've kind of crowned the organization, being like, this organization is so leaps and bounds better than we've ever seen in our entire lives. I always go back to the quote that Howie Rose says, that he's never seen the Mets organization this locked in at the top. He's never been this confident in decision-making processes of the Mets organization. He's watched every single fucking game. Like, that's where we are right now as a team. And none of this matters until you actually start winning consistently.
Correct.
Like, if you want to become the Dodgers, even when the Dodgers are in their transition phase, they're winning 95 games a year. And I think if you look at
the division, and they were losing in the World Series by this much, and the team cheated once.
No, they weren't making the World Series that much either. That took a few years of the whole core coming together. But it's just that this Mets team, the floor is still not that high right now. Like, the floor, we did the sim last week, so we got some good replies to the Out of the Park baseball.
We were the floor.
This team could go 80 and 82 this year. That wouldn't be like the most shocking thing ever, given this roster. If there's any injury, if anything goes wrong, so I think it is weird that, like, especially, like, also want to shout out Foul Territory for being at the Baseball Writers Association Awards, sponsoring it. Scooter, Eric, and AJ were out there, like, talking on there. They were decked out in their suits. It was kind of sweet to see. And he had the Foul Territory branding, like, on the stream the whole time, like, with the Baseball Writers Association Awards, like, logo. That was cool to see mixed in. But, like, the Mets, like, got, like, one of the, like, the year achievement awards, and, like, Grimace is on stage. Like, again, it's cool. Like, Grimace was part of the team last year, so that's real. But meme. Like, how much are we going to hold on to a season that we came in third place?
Like I said, I think Grimace has to stay in 2024. It's not going to, but I thought it should stay in 2024.
I think Grimace should stay around a little bit. Like, they should be like a break glass in case of emergency.
Yeah.
Like, I think if Grimace at opening day, which I'm sure he will be, I think that will be But, like, if Grimace is around, like, on May 9th and the Mets are, I don't know,
Thursday against the Rockies, like,
and the Mets are 17 and 18, I'll be like, all right, this is getting kind of fucked up now. Like, it's a Seth Rogen meme. But that was, again, like, It's cool to see. I love the Mets to the FanFest. More teams are doing it now. The fact that Steve Cohen did this and it was so vast is incredible. I do think, though, there is a little bit of, like, we need to prove ourselves on the field a little bit more before 100%. We really anoint ourselves as something special. But again, as an organization, I still think we are. We're in that spot. Again, like, there's a lot of symptoms now. The Adbert Alzolay signing is a big symptom of the organizational health, organizational success.
Or listening to this podcast.
Yeah, right? Like, all that shit. And also, a couple other things I want to talk about on Amazin Day. First of all, I think that Vientos, he's got a swagger about him right now. It's kind of unmistakable.
I
the
just
bleached
really
hair
hope he starts the year hot.
Yeah,
I'm afraid of a cold streak with Vientos. That's the only thing. And it's not. I'm afraid of a cold streak of, like, him as a player. Like, oh, I'm afraid of a cold streak. I'm afraid of what it does up here. I'm afraid of the mental side of a cold streak for him.
I'm a little bit opposite with you, because I think we've seen Vientos have insane mental toughness and mental fortitude over the last few years. Like, what he went through, especially last year in the beginning of the year. JD Martinez being signed at the eve of the season, coming up and hitting a walk-off home run, fucking immediately being sent back down the day after that happened. Like, I think he has, like, the dog shit mentally. And I just sometimes worry about the skill set, but he does have true star appeal, true star potential, and we're seeing that unfold in these last few months. I think that is a really cool thing to watch.
To be devil's advocate here, do you fear that because now it's almost a given that there's a worry there? Because last year he had to fight for his life. You play different when you're like, this might be the last shot I ever get. Do you think that there's something to that? I'm not, like, necessarily believing this. I'm just trying to get a conversation going here. But I think there could be something to the idea of, like, when you're fighting for your life versus where you're coming in, you're like, I'm adored, I'm awesome, I had a great year.
Well, what you're saying is exactly what we're talking about for the entire team. Like, that's all symbolism about everything right now, where, again, like, is it like we got over the hump and now it's downhill forever? Like, not downhill forever, I mean, but it's like, downhill was the wrong word there. I was saying, like, you climb the mountain, it's easy to go down the other side of the mountain. Not like the team's getting worse, but it's like, is it like we snapped, like we did it, we're there? Maybe they are. Like, maybe that is true.
Which
like,
would be sick. I'd love that.
Maybe this team walks on the field against the Astros on opening day and just the swagger is insurmountable and we just start beating the shit out of people. I think that's possible. But also, again, like, man, that was a good point. I don't think about it that way. But I do feel like he just has, I think he has such dog in him that I trust and I'm in.
I mean, he went vanilla ice on us with the blonde frosted tips, which is a crazy move. Crazy move. I hope it pays off. But I mean, you can only do that move if you've got dog like that.
And sick that they all had to suite together at the Knicks game after FanFest, and then Vientos, Mauricio, and a couple other guys went and sat courtside. And I don't know if you've seen this. This is a recent update because I've been in a Twitter storm about making fun of Josh Hart for saying it's Yankee City, which was in response to the fact that there was a video about the Mets, in air quotes, guys, getting booed when they were showing them the Jumbotron. Yeah. It's come out that was fake. That was a doctored video. It got community noted.
No way.
The John Boy original tweet about the Mets getting booed was community noted.
Whoa!
It was a troll video.
Did they do it, or is that?
I don't know if they did it. I don't know if they had the first one.
Either way, but
incredible. I mean, it's trolling out there. I did a big troll on Yankee fans too, and I have I'm going to get like 1 million impressions on it, which is a fun
really?
one.
Hell yeah!
It's over half. It's over 500,000 right now, but it's interesting how like stroking these Yankee Mets flames is still such a big thing. But like that's like star shit. That's sick New York shit. Like courtside the Yankee at the Knicks game.
Did you see AJ Minter during Amazin Day?
But I thought that was funny because he was up there with, who was he up there with? It was I can't remember right now.
It was a Clay Holmes.
Yes, because I think Montes
maybe or Montes.
I thought it was Montes. I remember being like, these are Yankees. He's up there with like for guys who are on the Yankees. But it's just funny. Like we've always known Minter to be a heel. Like don't you guys remember playing against him all those years? Like he's a dick. Yeah. He's an asshole. So it's just funny that he would do that. It is weird that like he would evoke the Yankees like that at the Mets FanFest. But I do think it was like kind of being tongue in cheek with literally Clay Holmes who was sitting next to him.
Yes.
But also that was a funny comment. And then the last thing I want as we start to go out of the FanFest, I'm starting to think it's a little weird how the Mets are super with open arms re-welcoming Matt Harvey into the community and the family.
Yeah, it's one of those
I'm a little put off.
It's one of those things where I think Harvey went through a really tough time, and I think that's super unfortunate, all the stuff that happened, and obviously like, he's not to blame for anything, but it is interesting how quickly all of a sudden it's bounced back into the Mets community. I don't know if this is a good or bad thing. I kind of feel neither way, but I also can see both sides of things. Like welcome Matt Harvey back, changed person, better person. Everybody deserves a second chance, but I could also see people on the other side being like, hey, some bad stuff happened around him. I don't know if he should be a public figure right now.
Yeah, the part of it that I like the most is that it seemed like when Harvey was here towards the end, he was kind of blowing in the wind, and I think that was a function of some poor leadership on this team then. Like, I just think the Will Ponds, and at that point, I guess Terry Collins wasn't really, I guess also last year he was here with Collins the whole time. But it's just like, it wasn't, I don't know, it seemed like that was a big struggle. So it is nice that as this organization has become stronger, like all the stuff we're talking about, like they'll welcome in a guy like Harvey. Seems like
Harvey had Mickey Callaway for the last
okay, so there was Mickey Callaway. So it got shame on me for any kind of blame of Terry, because Terry's a player's guy. But it's just like the fact that it is nice that we're able to welcome him back, and hopefully he is changed and he's better now. But it is weird just given the context of everything that happened in the Tyler Skaggs trial, in the case of the other guy that I think went to jail with it, that Harvey was very explicitly named. He's very much a part of that, and that he was bad. He was very bad. And it also was weird to me that, like, it's not bad. This is funny that, like, Harvey's here as, like, a Mets legend, and, like, Zach Wheeler is one of the best pitchers in baseball at the same time.
I know. It's
that part's fucked up.
And Jacob deGrom's still pitching, and, like, the two guys that, like, if you think of that 2015 World Series run, the two guys you would make heroes, Noah Syndergaard and Matt Harvey, are not in baseball anymore. Noah Syndergaard's going on any podcast right now, begging for a chance, apologizing to the Mets, give him another chance, give me another chance. I should have never left. Matt Harvey's not in baseball, and then Jacob deGrom and Zach Wheeler are still pitching in majors right now.
Yeah, it's a good chance those guys could each win Cy Youngs this year. But also so funny that the Harvey panel was like 2015 World Series people, and it was David Wright, Matt Harvey, and John Neese. And like shout out John Neese, because John Neese had a great sense of humor. Yeah, shout out Lima, Ohio, John Neese, hopefully a Buckeye fan. I'm going to pretend he is. But I really wonder who said no before Neese said yes.
Murphy and
Granderson?
Bartolo, Granderson. Maybe, I mean, I'm not even going to say said no. Busy. I'm going to say busy.
Yeah, busy.
Murphy, Granderson, Bartolo, busy.
The other part that was really funny about this FanFest was they were going to promote like a big panel of Juan Soto. Wasn't there.
Yeah, I don't know if he was ever coming, I'll be honest.
And the last thing about Amazin Day, I mean, a lot of you guys reached out to us and asked if we were going to be there, if we were going to be doing content stuff there. A lot of other content creators were there, like shout out Jolly, Connor, Joe, a lot of great stuff they did there. Yeah. But just to peel back the curtain a little bit, we allude to this sometimes in the show. Like, we have a pretty awkward relationship with the Mets. like the way it ended last year was kind of awkward, and the way it went through this year was also pretty awkward. And just there's no other really word they have for it besides awkward. Like I don't know. It has felt weird. It felt weird then. It felt weird right after. It still feels weird. It feels like some other people were there. We don't know if their companies were the ones like pushing them to go there, or if the Mets are the ones who like reached out to them. But like we do similar things. We've worked with them in the past. There was no indication, no communication with us. So it's a bit of a weird feeling there for us.
Yeah, like we weren't barred from being at the event, but like personally, why I wasn't there. Obviously, James can't be there because he's in Thailand. That'd be impressive if you flew all the way there. Soto couldn't make the flight to the Dominican, but for me, I was just like, this is an awkward situation for me because it's like there's so many things I want to be involved with an amazing day, and I want to be a part of this and talk to the players and talk to the people out there and all that kind of stuff. But it didn't feel, and you guys, it didn't feel like a spot that was appropriate for me to be at right now. Honestly, it didn't seem like it was the right timing with what was going on for me to be a part of it and try and make things happen. So that's why I wasn't there. I just felt awkward. I did not feel particularly comfortable being there. But that being said, we go to like 60 games a year. So we're happy to see you guys at all the games. We're around. We'll have a beer with anybody at a game and we'll talk to you guys. And
Mark's season ticket holder.
Yeah, I'm a season ticket holder now, which is still a crazy thing to say. But at the end of the day, it did look like an amazing day, which there you go. Looked like an amazing day. I just gave them their marketing right there. It was fantastic. And hopefully next year we'll be at it. That'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, also, we'll see if they do it next year. It doesn't seem like something you can just do every year. Kind of feels similar to Old Timers Day, where like you break this out every 5-ish years. You know what I mean? Like that kind of feels like to me. And again, looked like a great event. Like the way this all went down the last year-ish, it feels a little weird sometimes. And
it's a little raw.
Yeah, not even that's a little raw. Just seeing the way that some other people are accepted, it doesn't seem like we are. So it's like, all right, we'll take a step for a second.
Yeah, we'll take a step back. We'll do our own thing, keep our head down, keep doing what we're doing. We make tons of Mets content for you guys all the time over here on YouTube, over here on the audio feed. We hope you guys do appreciate it. We love making it for you. We have an episode coming out later this week with Lance Brozdowski where we go over a lot of really, really dense pitching stuff, especially on the prospect side. So hope you guys are looking forward to that. And if there's any big news or whatnot, me and James will be coming at you with another episode. So we appreciate you. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the YouTube channel over on Mets'd on YouTube. If you're listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, drop us a rating, drop us a review, download and subscribe. And follow us on all our social media at Mets'd on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. You can follow James on Twitter at
James_Shiano.
And I'm Drafting Mark with a C. Thank you all for listening and watching, and we'll catch you all in the next episode. Peace out.
Peace out, guys. Let's go Mets. See you next time.